to limit their speeches to around 5 minutes so that everybody can get in. And I call Joanna Cherry.
Thank you, Mrs Cummings. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairpersonship. I'm supporting the prayer of the first petition, which is about restoring clarity to the law by specifying that the terms sex, male, female, man and woman in the Equality Act refer to biological sex and not sex as modified by a gender recognition certificate. My Edinburgh South West constituency was one of the 5 constituencies with the highest number of signatories on that petition. The other 4 were the remaining 4 Edinburgh constituencies. And I think this indicates the level of concern in Scotland's capital city about the lack of clarity of the law as it stands, particularly in the light of the debate about self-identification in Scotland. Now, given that I have only 5 minutes, I'm going to concentrate on one particular topic, but I just want to say that the petition which I support is not about changing the Equality Act, it's about clarifying the Equality Act, whereas the second petition wants to leave the law muddled, and that is in nobody's interests. The Equality Act attempted to strike reasonable balances between the rights of people with 9 different protected characteristics. Those include sex, sexual orientation and gender reassignment. And the protected characteristic of gender reassignment is widely drawn, and rightly so. It's rightly not confined to those who have undergone medical treatment or indeed those who have a GRC. All transgender people are protected against discrimination on the grounds of gender reassignment. That is right, and there's no intention to remove that protection, and I wouldn't support any petition that did that. But there is a need for the law to be clarified. That's shown by 2 recent court cases in Scotland which have gone in opposite directions. One, which was a decision of the Scottish Appeal Court, found that the provisions in favour of women, by definition, exclude those who are biologically male. Another decision of a lower court found that sex is not limited to biological or birth sex, but includes those in possession of a gender recognition certificate. Now, the second decision is not binding on any of the lower courts, and it is under appeal at the moment. But I don't see why women should have to crowdfund to clarify the law that protects them when the government can use the power built into the Gender Recognition Act by Section 23 to resolve the issues and protect everyone's rights. Now, before I go any further, I just want to refer briefly to my register of interests that I'm on the advisory group of Sex Matters. And I do believe that sex matters. And many people agree with me. The Equality and Human Rights Commission agree with me. The consultation for their strategic plan revealed that out of all protected characteristics, sex was important to the highest proportion of respondents. And very interestingly, Madam Chairwoman, last week, when the report of the Scottish Government's independent strategic review of funding and commissioning of violence against women and girls services was published, it recommended that single-sex provision should remain as part of a range of services. And one of their interlocutors said this: it is possible to be pro-women and not anti-anyone else. Now, in the short time I have, I want to focus in particular on the rights of lesbians and gay men to be same-sex and not same-gender identity attracted, and our right to freedom of association. The protected characteristic of sexual orientation is contingent on the definition of sex as meaning biological sex. Lesbians, gay men and bisexual people all experience same-sex attraction. That is, attraction based upon biological sex, not gender identity. And as a lesbian, I think I can speak with some authority on this issue. Gender identity is not relevant to sexual attraction. In recent years, Stonewall has quietly modified their definition of homosexuality to centre around gender identity and not sex. That was done without the permission of many gay people across the UK. And now that they also explicitly include cross-dressers within that gender, within the definition of transgender, this means that many males now self-define as lesbians. And under this climate, it's impossible for lesbians to meet and gather openly without men wishing to join us or disrupt our events. Now, in the words of Anne Lister, lesbians love and only love the fairer sex. It's unacceptable that we should be forced to include men in our groups and our dating pool. Indeed, it's outright homophobia, and lesbian sexual orientation is exclusive of males as it's based on biological sex. I spoke about this during the debate in LGBT History Week to say what a problem this is for lesbians, and I quoted my constituent Sally Wainwright, who wrote at length about this in the Times. And just before I sit down, Madam Chairwoman, I want to say something to honourable members who will perhaps this evening be influenced by the Equality Network's briefing in support of the second petition. In Scotland, the Equality Network has lobbied Scottish parliamentarians for self-identification of sex, saying it had nothing to do with the Equality Act. But now today, they're lobbying members of this Parliament for a position which would annihilate the ability of women to have any clubs or associations which cannot exclude all male people. The Equality Network has in the past lobbied this Parliament to remove the very exemptions in the Equality Act upon which it is relying today. So honourable members should be aware that the Equality Network may have a grand inclusive-sounding name, but on this issue, it advocates for a position based on an extreme interpretation of gender identity theory and not for the interests of same-sex attracted women like me and my constituent Sally, or indeed for women full stop. As my friend Alison Bailey has said, the rights of lesbians are not contingent on us accepting gender identity theory. It's time, Madam Chairwoman, that lesbians and the protected characteristic of sexual orientation regained the voice it once had in this Parliament. I'm proud to be that voice, and I want to thank organisations like LGB Alliance, Lesbian Labour, the Lesbian Project and the Women's Rights Network for supporting me to be that voice, and I support the first petition.
Hear, hear.